G'day, Ben from Duck Playing Chicken here with the second episode of this build series for the Space Battleship Yamato 2202 Mecha Colle Czvarke and Desvatator kit. These two models, if you watched my last video, you'll know that I primed them all. I've started with the painting and I wanted to show you some progress and talk about the colours I want to use before I get into the first round of masking. So first of all, starting with the Czvarke, you can see that there's the grey primer there, and I've coated the cockpit glass with jet black by SMS, and then I've put over the top of that a gloss coat. So I'm still waiting for that to dry. When it does, I'll mask that off. Now you notice underneath there's a little bit of yellow there, so I started off with just doing a little bit of white primer, and then using school bus yellow for these yellow areas. So these now need to be masked off before I sort of paint the overall body of the craft, which I am going to do with white pearl. So this has got a little bit of a sort of sparkle to it, so I'm just interested to see what this stuff's like. It's a little bit of green that goes on the sides here. I haven't sort of decided what I'm going to do there yet. I'll probably end up brushing it on though, whatever I do. And speaking of brushing it on, there are areas with these exhausts that are sort of dark grey. So for that, I'm actually going to use enamel paint. I'm going to use, to me, it's XF63 German Grey, and I will be painting that in by hand. One thing to keep in mind with enamels is because they take so long to dry, they actually self-level pretty well, so they're actually good for brush painting, and I think at this scale they'll be perfectly fine. The reason being is that these little areas at the rear here are just going to be near on impossible to kind of mask off, so I think it's just going to be easy to paint them, and I'll be able to, you know, clean them up almost like I do panel lines by just using a little bit of enamel thinner on a cotton bud. So before I put on the grey primer, I masked off all the LED areas, so sort of in the back of the thrusters here, also on the front, you know, here and here. These are tiny little ones, I haven't actually masked them off. I'm hoping I can sort of scratch away the paint from those if I get any paint on them. So I've done a little bit of masking with blue tack. So that's sort of the Czvarke. And the other thing I'm going to do is once I do the masking, I'll use a surface white primer, so you can see on the stabilizer fin here, because I know that this stuff, the white pearl, looks a lot better over a white primer than certainly over grey. So for the Desvatator, I've done the white primer here, and then I've started with the grey section, so for that I'm using AAF Dark Grey by SMS. And there's also a bit of yellow accent on these rear sort of outlets here. So for that I've used school bus yellow. And once I've sort of masked off those areas, I'll then go in and I'm using a different white. It's actually Aggressor White Grey. And this has got a bit of a warm tint to it. You can sort of see if I hold up the two whites I'm using. Give this one a bit of a shake. You know, the one on the left is a bit warmer, so that's what I'll be using for the Desvatator. The tail bits, there is a little area here that needs to be white, so I've just sort of done the white primer on there, ready for the white grey I want to put on, and then I'll mask that off, and the rest of it will be painted in green using SMS green. So now it's just a matter of me sort of doing some masking and working through the different steps. Mask off an area, paint another colour, do some more masking, paint the next colour. These kits will be pretty straightforward. I think as far as masking goes, it'll be, you know, for the bigger areas it'll be masking tape for this sort of thing. For these little yellow areas, I'll probably just end up using blue tack. I've started the masking of the yellow areas, and I'm just using blue tack and toothpick just to sort of get in there. You still see it's a little bit messy. I need to clean up those edges a little bit, but that's what I'll be using for that. Then I'll be taking some masking tape, masking the canopy, and then I can go over it in white. For the Desvatator, I have masked off just using masking tape the dark grey area, and also I've started on these yellow accents, which are, you know, a little bit tricky to mask, but we'll see how that goes. So I've finished up the first round of masking. So I've got the yellow masked off here and the dark grey masked off on the top. So now what I'll do is I'll put a white primer over this, and then I'll use the actual off-white that I want for this particular piece. For this one, I've masked off the canopy, and underneath I've masked off all these yellow areas just using blue tack. So I'm not quite sure how successful that'll be, but we'll see. It means every time I look at it, it's like a new issue I find with the masking. But same thing, this will get a white primer coat. But before I do that, now that I've done all the masking, I need to stick on these last two little bits on the nose. Okay, so I've got those bits stuck on now, so it is now ready for the white primer. Once it's dried, we'll be good to go. Time to do some unmasking and see how crook it is. So let's start by lifting up the masking for the yellow. Yeah, it's a little bit rough. But I reckon once I get a panel line wash in there, it won't be too bad. And of course, the gaps in here will be filled with a panel line wash, so that'll blacken that up quite a bit. Now let's look at the dark grey. Yep, that's come up all right. Happy with that. Okay, and that's sort of it for the hull. I mean, there's not really that much else. A lot of the detail, of course, will be picked out with the panel line wash. Alright, now on to the other one. Now, just before I start unmasking, check out this pearl white. It's actually came up really cool. It is quite transparent paint, so it sort of has the flecks in it for the pearl effect. So you do really need to make sure you got a nice white primer behind it. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way they come up. It'll be interesting to see what happens, what it looks like once a gloss coat goes over it. Alright, so for unmasking this, let's see how we went with the yellow. Okay, so you can see that sort of hole there, that's where obviously where the fibre optic goes in. It's just really hard to get a nice sharp edge using blue tack as your masking tool. What I'm doing is I'm just using a bit of clean blue tack to sort of pick up some of the smaller bits. Okay, so that's what that looks like. A couple of sort of small remnants in there, but I think I can sort of live with that. Okay, let's have a look at the canopy. I am a bit concerned about this one, but it should be reasonably straightforward to touch up. Okay, so there's the canopy. Hasn't come up too bad actually. So getting an idea what this sort of looks like, and with the yellow details. So I'll go ahead and unmask the other bits. The other thing that I need to do is mask these areas off. So these are the the engines here. Mask those off because they're supposed to be in the white, whereas the rest of it's supposed to be green. So I'll mask those off and paint this green, and then show you what that looks like. So I've brush painted some enamel German grey on all the little intake areas, and I've just been going around sort of cleaning that up a little bit. The great thing about painting with enamels is, especially over sort of a lacquer or even a water-based acrylic, is they're nice and easy to clean up. And to give you an example, the major intakes, you can see the one on the left is a little bit scrappy. So I'm just going to quickly show you how I clean that up, and it's literally the same way as you would do panel lines. So I'm going to take a cotton bud, and I prefer the ones with the pointy ends. You take a bit of enamel thinner, dunk it in, get rid of the excess, and you literally just brush it across the edges. And what that'll do is that'll give you a lot sharper sort of edge. And that already looks a lot better. So obviously I've got to do panel lining and stuff, but at least I've got all that grey in there. So on the side view, of course I haven't got to put the stabilisers on yet, but I'll do that in the next step. So overall it's coming up reasonably well, I think. I have painted the green parts for the Desvatator. Now I'm going to unmask it and hopefully it looks okay. I ended up using a combination of sort of blue tack and masking tape. But there's just this sort of one section that's sort of the masked off for white. There's a little bit of overspray, but I reckon I might be able to counteract that with a panel line wash. You can see that, okay, not too bad. And of course they're the LEDs masked behind there. Let's have a quick look at the other piece. I think we're getting pretty close to final assembly. So there's the other half. And I'm thinking I probably will start the assembly so that I can give the whole thing a gloss coat and then start working on the panel lines. So certainly for this one, the stabilizers will go on, gloss coat, and the gloss coat will help protect the existing enamel in there. Of course, panel line wash is enamel paint as well, so I don't want to interfere with that when I'm cleaning up all the panel lines. So that'll get a clear coat. Obviously the Desvatator here will get assembled, and that'll get a clear coat as well, ready for panel lining. Everything's had a gloss coat, so it's now ready for panel lining. Now there are a couple of markings down the side here that are in green that I haven't painted yet, and I'm going to do that after I've done the panel lining. I'm going to actually use some Crystal Periscope Green, which is Ammo by Mig. It's a clear green and it's a water-based acrylic, so hopefully the panel lining I do underneath will still show through, and it'll hopefully pick up a little bit of the pearl effect from the paint underneath as well. So basically for panel lining on this particular craft, I'm going to be using the panel line accent color grey, and you need to give this stuff a really good shake because it does separate quite quickly. And take a little bit on the brush, and then when you touch it to a panel line, it'll just flow all the way through. Now all those areas where it sort of has smudged out, that's alright, be able to clean that up, no problems. Dark. We'll see how it goes after the cleanup. I may go over it with a dark grey. In fact, let's have a look at that now, see if the dark grey is better. Okay, so this is the panel line accent colour dark grey. Let's give this a shot. Yeah, so I reckon that'll be too dark. I don't know. Yeah, actually maybe I will go the dark grey. Of course it looks a mess at the moment, but once I've cleaned that up. So I think that's what I'll end up doing. So just touching it to the panel line, let the capillary action do all the work. I think I'll use the dark grey as well for all the light areas on this one. The dark grey I reckon is going to look pretty good on that one. Now for the green areas, I'm not going to use the same stuff. I'm not going to use the dark grey. I'm actually going to use some XF27, which is black green, and I'm going to thin it down with X20 thinner, enamel paint thinner. And I've thinned it down quite a bit. So I've pre-mixed it in a bottle. Give it a good shake. You can sort of see how thin that is. It's really quite thin. Take my enamel thinner and put a little bit in this cup. Brush. First thing I'm going to do is just wet it a little bit with enamel thinner so it can draw up plenty of the wash. So again, it's just touching it to the panel lines, letting the capillary action do all work. And the good thing about this stuff is it's not black as such, it's like a really dark green, so I think it'll actually work a bit better. And I think the only areas I'm actually going to use some black in is the rear of these vents. So the black I'm using is the panel line accent colour black. Now at the moment I'm getting quite a bit in there, but that's alright because it will clean up just fine. At least it should hide the somewhat ugly seams I've got in there. Okay, so that's sort of the materials I'm going to use for panel lining. So I'll go ahead and get that done on both of these kits. The bombs for the Desvatator, I've actually kept them off the kit just because it's going to be a bit easier doing panel lining underneath before I put these on. So, but they're the only separate bits at the moment. Everything else is sort of all glued together. I've given the panel lining enamel paint some time to dry, so now it's a matter of cleaning it up, and that's really quite simple. It's just a matter of taking a cotton bud, some enamel thinner, and gently wiping it across the areas where you don't want the panel line paint to stay. And so there's really not a lot to it. One of the reasonably simple sort of modelling techniques that can make a big difference to your model. The one thing to be wary of though is when you're doing this, you do sometimes want to do the first round of it, leave it, come back to it, because I know from experience that quite often I will miss areas. It becomes very noticeable, especially once you put a matte coat over the top of it. Now if I just clean up this one side here, and then we could do a comparison with the other side. So you can see on the left hand side we've got all those sort of splodges and runovers and stuff, and over here on this side it's a lot cleaner. So I'll go ahead and clean up the rest of the kits, and then we'll be ready for decals. A little bit more painting on the other one, and then a flat coat. Time to do some decals, and I apologise if you can hear the cockies in the background. The cockatoos are making a hell of a racket, but that's what they do at this time of day. So with these decals, I've had a good look at the decal sheet, and they are beautifully detailed. But one thing is, although they're pre-cut, they've actually got quite a bit of carrier film around the outside of them. So what I've been doing is trimming them so that they're a lot closer to the edge. I'm hoping that allows me to lay them down better around sort of some of the protruding elements of the kit. I'll sit that one in the water for a bit. Now, from experience, I've found that these Bandai decals are really high quality. They're really thin. And so as far as the other products that I'll use Microset and Microsol by Microscale Industries. I find this stuff tends to be a little bit milder than some of the other products out there. So I'm going to start by putting down some Microset. This helps the decal to not float around so much on the surface. So I'll just show you doing a couple of them. We've got a couple that go on the stabilizer up here. And so for this one, you can see that there's sort of a hole there. That's for one of the details on the stabilizer. I've actually cut that out on the decal because I found previously that when you try to, where you're dealing with the carrier film over an element that sticks out, it becomes a bit problematic. Whereas if you cut the hole out, it makes it a little bit easier to work with. And a cotton bud just to soak up some of the moisture. Just position it. And then I'm going to take the cotton bud and roll it across. So that's how it looks there. And then the final step is to put some Microsol over the top of it. And the Microsol really helps that decal to melt a little bit and helps it to bed down into the panel lines. Okay, I'm just going to prop this up on one of my stands here, just so that you can better see what's going on. Didn't even get that close to where I wanted it. Some more water on there. It's a great thing about decals is if you want to sort of move them around a bit more, you just add some more water. I think that's where it's supposed to be. I'm just checking the instructions here. I think I probably need to move it up just a little bit. So you get an idea there how that looks. Okay, so I've got two on. I've got a few more to go. There is the one on the bottom that I am actually going to have to cut. And the reason for that is because it actually goes a fair way sort of down the fuselage, and of course I've got a great big post in the way, so I will need to sort of trim this one to sort that out. But I'll get those done and then show you the result. Okay, I finished putting down all the decals and they've come up reasonably well. There is one right on the nose, the little logo, that's quite tricky to sort of get in place because it's so small. But also underneath you can sort of see I've had to cut that decal around the post. Now I've also done the brush painting of the green on the sides, and what I did is I ended up using a combination of clears. So I used crystal green and crystal periscope green from Ammo by MIG. I'm not really that happy with it, but I've sort of got to the point where I think, I've overworked this thing. Anyway, what I'll do is I've got to give it a flat coat and then re-gloss the canopy, the cockpit canopy, and then I can start looking at putting it into a base. So for the bases, I'm going to use my regular process for the Mecha Colle kits I build, which is take one of these clear acrylic, they're called gift boxes, They're sort of 5 centimeters by 5 by 5. And I'll take one of those and then I will drill a couple of holes in them. So I'll drill a hole for the switch, which is just a standard toggle switch, and then a hole for the USB connector. So these are just USB sockets that just allow for the power from that USB lead. In the top I'll do a 3mm hole for the post, the aluminium tube. And I should just highlight for these holes here, you've got to watch out with acrylic, it can crack quite easily. So I use one of these step drills and I actually sort of drill bit by bit so that you're not in any real danger of cracking the acrylic. So once that's ready to go and I've cleaned all that up, the next step is to paint it black. So I just use the SMS primer black and then throw a matte coat over the top, and that's what we end up with. So there's the hole that the mounting post goes in and the holes for the button and socket. The craft themselves, I'm just waiting for the matte coat to dry and then we're going to be ready for assembly, final assembly with the electronics. Okay, the wiring is nearly complete, so I just want to sort of talk you through how I've done that. I've given everything a matte coat and I've also added a bit of gloss to the canopy, which I shouldn't have unmasked when I did, but you know, it is what it is. So what I've done here is I have wired up all the positives from the LEDs in the model kit to a single resistor. Not best practice, you're better off doing individual resistors for each LED, but in this case I've sort of taken the risk. So that goes to one pin on the switch. The other positive line that goes to the switch is from the USB port, and then the negative from the USB port is hooked up to the negatives of all the LEDs in the model. So there's not a lot to it, it's a pretty sort of basic circuit. Okay, I applied heat shrink and finished up the wiring on these two kits, and so just some final thoughts before I show the beauty shots. First of all, the Desvatator is probably the easier of the two kits to light and also to paint. It's just sort of a couple of colours, the parts are reasonably well separated and there's sort of marginal masking needed, so that one's pretty straightforward. This one is fiddly if you want to light, and I'm actually not super happy with the result of this. It's sort of a little bit messy in places with the panel lining and also just the quality of the paint job, which is all on me, it's not the paint. The decals are really nice. They really add to sort of the detail of the ship. A little bit of green I did down the side. Doesn't look too bad. It's probably a little bit too bright. But yeah, I mean, they're Mecha Colle kits. They're really well engineered. They're great fun, even if you just want to snap them together and sort of, use Gundam markers and a matte coat or something like that. They're great to sort of just throw together. And of course, I like to light them and make my life more difficult. So anyway, until the next build series, I'll catch you later.